Do you ever go to pick up your crochet hook only to think, I kind of don't feel like crocheting today, or it kind of just seems like another task or thing to do? If that's the case, you might be dealing with a lack in your crochet mojo, also known as your crojo. And in today's video, I want to give you guys 7 tips to getting your crojo back. Now, I've wanted to make this video for a little while. In my first live stream, somebody asked the question of how to get your crojo back, and I just thought it seemed like a great theme for a longer format video, and also very pertinent because right now I am in my very own crochet slump. I have lost my crojo at the moment, and so just know that these tips I'm gonna give you in this video are just as much for myself as they are for you guys. I have by no means perfected it. A lack in crojo or inspiration or just feeling burnt out happens to everybody. And so if you're feeling that, just know you're not alone. Now, before we get into the tips, I want to talk about what might be the cause behind a lack or a loss in your crojo. These are just things that came from my head. These are not scientifically proven. So first and foremost, I think burnout is a major cause of losing your crojo. And this can be burnout from other areas in your life. Maybe you're working a really stressful job, or you have a newborn child, or there are some other stressors going on, and crochet just feels like another thing to do, and it doesn't feel like a source of enjoyment for you. It can also be burnout from crocheting or knitting itself. So maybe you've done a major market. Maybe you've just been working on a huge project and it's taken up a lot of your mental space, and you finally finished it and now you just feel exhausted. Lots of reasons to feel burned out, but I think the main way to see it is too much, too often, with no end in sight. The other thing that I think can cause people to lose their crojo is perfectionism. And this is a major reminder for myself because it is something that I struggle with. But if nothing is ever good enough, why would you continue to try to succeed at it? I thought of an example earlier. It's like, let's just say you have a boss and you feel like you're doing everything you can to the best of your ability, but nothing seems to ever be good enough for this boss. You might start to feel like, what is the point in even trying? There's nothing that I could do that is going to make this person happy. Well, sometimes some of us, myself included, are that boss to ourselves. And it's just for a hobby that we're supposed to be enjoying doing, but we put unnecessary pressure on ourselves to make things absolutely perfect, store-bought looking, and something that would be on anybody's Pinterest board. The last thing that I think can cause a loss in crojo is the overconsumption of other people's content. We live in an age where everything is really fast and we only see the highlights of other people's making or their crafting, and it can give us a really false sense of what it really means to crochet a project from start to finish, and some of the trials and tribulations that people face when they're creating that sweater or that plushie or whatever you're looking at and maybe comparing yourself to. So those are my thoughts on why a loss in crojo happens. I said that I would talk about why I'm feeling a little bit of burnout. For me, I recently worked on a video that I was going to post actually, where I did a crochet challenge making as many boba plushies as possible for an upcoming market. I did make that video, but even as I was making it, I just wasn't feeling the joy behind it. I was feeling like I had to do it, and I ended up going to the market, and it was the first time that I did not even make my booth fee back, and the booth fee was only $50. That just tells you how poor my selling experience was, and the 4 people who bought from me were all vendors. It was just not great, and after that, I went back and reviewed the footage that I made for that video, and I could see that I wasn't really even having that much fun doing it. It kind of led to me feeling a little bit discouraged and a little bit like, what is the point? Also, another piece of it is that when you put yourself out there on the internet, on YouTube, of course you're going to have varying levels of success with your videos, and sometimes that can be kind of hard to ride the wave. Now, although those aren't just crochet like projects that I'm working on, they're adjacent to my crochet hobby. So for me, it kind of led to the same feeling of burnout of, I don't want to make videos, I don't want to crochet a project right now. That general feeling of having lost my crojo. So anyway, what do we do about it? Let's get into the 7 tips. I wanted to make these very tangible, practical tips rather than just saying, stop being a perfectionist or stop comparing. Those things are great in theory, but actually breaking it down into tangible steps on how you can do that is another story. And so I tried to make these really tangible and practical takeaways. Tip number 1, if you're finding that being on social media and looking at other people's creations is draining you more than it's inspiring you, then just take a little detox. Get off of social media, and that doesn't include like Pinterest, Ravelry, or other sources as long as they're bringing you inspiration. But if they're draining you, then get off of those too for a little while. Just take a break. As Teddy Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy, and I think that is so true. You might be so proud of your first handmade sweater, but maybe you open up your Instagram app on your phone and see one that is way more beautiful in your opinion. It looks much more well done, it's more professional looking, more polished. And now all of a sudden the sweater that you made doesn't seem that great. Well, what happened to the joy that you just had 5 minutes ago thinking that this sweater was the coolest thing and that you made it with your own 2 hands? I think social media has a really sometimes toxic way of making us look at our own handcrafted items through the lens of perfectionism yet again. And so tip number 1 is take a break if you're not feeling inspired by social media. Oh, the other part of this tip also is not to let anybody make you feel bad about how you craft. Now, I'm no stranger to the internet. I see that there are, some craft snarks out there on Reddit craft snark, and everyone is entitled to their opinion, but that doesn't mean that you have to take their opinion to heart. So I've seen people say nobody should be using acrylic yarn, or plushies are projects just for beginners. Don't let anybody make you feel bad about the type of yarn you're using, what kind of projects you're working on, or where you're shopping either. Crafting is so highly individualized, and at the end of the day, they're not the ones that are working on the project, you are. It's your hobby, and you should enjoy it as such. Tip number 2 is to choose a project that is just for you, not for a friend, not for market prep, not for Instagram, something that you think is gonna go viral. Just pick something off of your crochet bucket list that you have been dying to make and make that. And I wouldn't even document the process if you are someone that is on social media. Have this just be truly for you and a way to reconnect to your hobby. For me, a project that I worked on recently was the Winnie the Pooh hoodie bear. This pattern was by Nooks Hooks, and it was just something that I did while I watched one of my favorite comfort shows, and it really brought me back to the joy of crocheting. For me, I find that what works best when I'm in a creative rut is doing something that's a bit shorter and sweet, because if I start working on a blanket, I am almost guaranteed to get a little distracted or bored like halfway through, and I don't think that's gonna help my crojo, so that's not the kind of project that I would gravitate towards, but it's up to you as long as it's a project that you're really excited about. But I do think getting that quick win under your belt can be really helpful. And then I'm also gonna couple this with a tip that's a little bit harder in practice, and I understand that very, very well, but it is to try to let go of perfectionism as much as you can for this specific project. And try to look at the project through a case of utility. So if you made a t-shirt, did you make a t-shirt? Is it the most beautiful, wonderful, Instagram ready, Pinterest board style t-shirt in the world? That's not the question. The question is, did you make a shirt? And then also, when you talk to yourself about the shirt or you think about the shirt, think about how you would respond to a little kid who has just made this project. Or yourself as a little kid if you want to do that. You can even look at it through the lens of what you would say to a friend who made this project and brought it to you. Would you look at this through the lens of picking apart each of the little details that are not perfect, or would you be more encouraging and have more of that compassion towards them? Try your best to apply that to yourself on this project and do your best to just be proud of it. My third tip is to take a trip to your local yarn shop or craft shop, wherever you go and buy your yarns, and just get yourself a yarn that screams happiness. And I know you may or may not agree with this one. I know that they say money can't buy happiness. Sometimes it can buy you yarn though, which can lead to happiness. So I'm sorry, there I said it. I do believe it. Now, if you're thriftier or you have a yarn stash that permits, I would recommend starting there, looking through your yarn stash to see if there's a yarn that you once purchased that you were super excited about working with, to see if you can't conjure up that same feeling. But sometimes going to the shop and picking out a new yarn that you're excited really is just what you need. Now, I don't want to misconstrue this with saying you have to go buy an expensive skein of yarn or it has to be hand dyed. Like, you don't need to go buy a skein of Noro yarn just to do this little tip. It can be any yarn that feels good, that you're excited about and have a vision for making something with. Also, I would highly recommend going to the store with a pattern in mind, so maybe do a one skein project. For instance, for me, I am working on the Reina shawl, and I will put the pattern linked in the description box below. It is a free pattern from Ravelry, and I am using a yarn that I purchased for myself on a trip down to San Diego from one of the local yarn shops. I splurged a little bit on this yarn, but I just found the variegations in it to be beautiful. It was so soft and it just felt like a real treat. And so even though I didn't just purchase it really recently, I thought that that seemed like a really fun project to kind of get me inspired again. Tip number 4 is to try changing up your environment a little bit. I am the biggest creature of habit. You will find me in exactly 2 locations, knitting or crocheting. You'll either find me here, or you will find me in the living room, on the couch, in my Snuggie, in the corner of my sectional. And I don't really take my things elsewhere, but the few times that I have loved it, and it has been a really great experience. So try changing up your environment. Sometimes you just have to get out of the same old to start feeling inspired. So some ideas for this would be taking your knitting or crocheting to the park or to a coffee shop if you have a beach nearby, forest, on a boat, on a bench. There's so many different options, and it can just really feel like you're doing something new and different, even though it's really the same hobby. Tip number 5 is to join a local crafting group. Sometimes fiber arts can feel really isolating and a little bit lonely, and I love to hole up and just work on my projects by myself, but I 100% see the value of joining a group with other makers locally where you can really connect and have that sense of community. I actually went to one of these meetup groups that met at Panera Bread, and there were people of all different walks of life there working on their crochet, their knitting. There were even people working on needlepoint, and it was a really cool experience. I think sometimes in the craft community, we mistake connection online on Instagram, social media for community, and going out and actually being in the real world and meeting with other people that share the same hobby as you is so invaluable and encouraging and inspiring, and it's just plain fun. So if you're interested in doing something like this, I would highly recommend checking out Meetup. That was where I found my group that I joined. And if you can't find an in-person group, I do know that they have like Zoom meetings where you can still connect with other people online virtually. I think that it still creates that sense of connection that you don't get from just consuming other people's content in a more one-sided engagement where they're posting, you're liking, or maybe worse, you're getting in your head and comparing your own stuff against it. So I think that it's just a really good idea to try to get connected to other fiber artists, and that's one that I'm gonna take to heart and try to do myself very soon. Tip number 6 is to look for inspiration all around you. It's kind of vague, I know. It can be really easy to just go in this world, and sometimes, myself included again, all we need to do is pause and go for a walk without our phone and try to really see things that can inspire us. For instance, maybe you went to the beach and you were super inspired by the waves crashing down on shore and you decide to make a blue and white shawl. Or maybe you went to the park and you see the cutest squirrel and it inspires you to make a black squirrel plushie. I think even going to a craft store like Michael's and wandering the aisles, looking at some of their seasonal offerings, looking at their charms, their glitters, even their kids' books, anything can really jog inspiration, and it's everywhere. Sometimes we just need to slow down and look for it. Tip number 7, and I know that this one is the hardest one to do, and it's everybody's least favorite. It's also mine, but it's what I've done for the last few days, and it has worked wonders, and that is just to take a break. I know that crochet is such an anchor for so many of us, and it's what we come back to, and it has really, for many of us, become part of our identity, and that is a great and wonderful, beautiful thing. But if it's feeling like it's weighing you down instead of bringing you joy and sparking creativity, inspiration, then you might just need to take a little bit of time away from it, just a few days. You know what they say, distance makes the heart grow fonder, and I really do believe that that applies to this hobby as well. And so what this looks like for me is really slowing down, going for walks, maybe doing some diamond art painting. I like to play video games, and who knows, you might even find some inspiration in doing these side hobbies. I think any time that you're able to just start something as a total beginner, that's also a really nice way to take some of the pressure off of you. And when you come back to crochet or knitting or whatever it is that you do, you just are coming from a renewed sense of, this is for fun. This is not meant to be a competition. This is not meant to be sold in stores. This is just something that I do for myself to take care of myself and that I love to do. That's gonna wrap up the 7 tips to getting your crojo back. We all go through slumps when it comes to our creativity. We all lose our crojo at some point, and if that's you now or you come across that feeling at some point in the future, I just want to offer you these words of encouragement. It happens to everybody. It is very normal, and don't give in to those thought loops that say, it's never gonna come back, it's done, I'm quitting. Now, if you give it a lot of thought and that's ultimately the best next step for you, then all power to you. But if that's just your anxiety talking, just know that sometimes all you really need is a few days of rest and relaxation, and it's highly likely that that itch to start crocheting again will be back very soon. If you have a tip of what you've done to get your crojo back in the past, or if you're gonna implement any of these tips next time you lose your crojo, I would love to hear about it in the comment section down below. But with that, I'm gonna wrap this video up here. I really hope that you enjoyed, and if you did, remember to like, subscribe, and I will be back in the future with more crochet related content very soon. Thanks, bye!